So now it's time to start with the JavaScript part for the project, which is the English dictionary application. So for that we need to use the script.js file. Now inside of this particular file, first we need to get the reference of the variables. So we need to get the reference of this input type, this button, which is the search button, and then we need to also get the reference of all of the elements that is present under this particular result container. And also we need to get the reference of this result container, because whenever we click on the search button, we want to perform the slide animation and want to display the result container. So coming back to the script.js again, so first here I need to create a bunch of variables. So the first thing is we need to create here the search input. So it is like search input, and we need to get the ID. So we are going to use the document.getElementById function. So inside of that we need to actually specify the input type, which is this search input, which is this particular ID. So coming back to the index.html, so this is the search input, copy the name and I'm going to paste it here. Then I'm going to actually duplicate these lines of code multiple times, and here I'm going to change the name of the variable. So this is like our search button. So I'm going to come back to the index.html. So this is the search button, copy the name of the ID, and I'm going to replace the name of the ID from here. Then the third variable that we want is the result container. So it is like result container, and then we need to get the ID of the result container. So this is the ID of the result container. Coming back to the script.js, and here I'm going to replace the name of the result container, which is the ID name of the result container. Then the fourth variable we need is the word title. Then coming back to index.html, so this is the word title. Again I need to paste the name of the ID. Then this is actually our word description. And coming back to index.html, this is the word description, and here we need to paste the name of the word description. Then we need to add here audio button, and coming back to index.html, this is the audio button, and then pasting the name of the audio button. So everything is perfectly done. We can now get the reference of all of the HTML element inside the JavaScript variables. So now we need to set the listener to this particular button. So we want to click on this particular button and want to perform the thing. So we need to add the listener, which is the click listener. So we want to handle this particular click listener. So here we need to add the click, and then we need to perform here an anonymous callback, which is the arrow function. Alright, then we need to start its block of the code. Right, and then inside of that we need to call the search function. So this function we need to call not search button, actually we want a search function. Also when we press the enter key inside this input type, so we will also want to call that particular search function. So again here we need to use the search input. So we need to set the listener to the input as well. So we are going to listen to the key up input of the, so this is the input we are going to listen, and then we need to start the block of the code. Here we need to specify the equal to sign arrow function. Inside of that we also need to call the search function, that is this one, and here inside of that we need to pass the event as well, because we also need to here listen to the event. And then inside of the event, inside of the search block, we need to check for the condition if there is an event. So we need to check event dot key. So if it is equals to enter key, because whenever we press the enter, we want to call that particular search function inside of the input type if there is any word present inside that particular input types. Now control save it. You will see nothing will be happening because we have not specified any code inside the search function, or also we didn't create the search function. So now we need to create the search function, then need to start its block of the code. Inside of that we need to first create a variable, because we need to get the value of that particular input type. So we need to store that value inside the variable. So for that we need to create here another const, then this is actually equal to search item is equal to search item, and here we need to use this search input dot value dot trim function, not this Arial var, it's actually like value dot, why it's giving the problem, value dot, and then we need to call the trim function. So we are using here a trim so that we actually remove any spaces and before and after the word, or I can say that the text. So that is the reason we have actually used here a trim function. Then we need to check for the condition if search item, that is the value, is not actually going to equal to empty. So search item, we need to add that particular condition as well. So it is equals to, then we need to add this condition search item. If it is not equal to empty, then we need to enter here alert if it actually equals to empty. So we need to here add a message, please enter a word to search. Okay, so this is a message that we want to display inside the alert when there is any empty value inside the input type, and then we want to return. Alright, otherwise we want to fetch the dictionary data. So we want to create here fetch dictionary data function. So this is a function that we have fetch dictionary data. Now this function is going to accept an argument. So it is going to accept a search term, that is the search input, or I can say that this search item at this point of time, because the value is stored inside this particular search item variable. Now we need to create this function. So we need to here use the function keyword, function, then fetch dictionary data. Now this function is going to accept an argument of type string. So here we want to specify the argument, which is the search term. So it is like search term, because what we actually want to search, we are actually going to use here a search term. Also I'm going to actually copy this here also, and we need to make this variable name as well as search term, so that it will become same and meaningful, because what we want to search, it will be represented as a search term. Again, you can name it as per your whatever you want, as per your convenience. You can name it whatever you want, but I actually used here a search term. Then we need to actually create this function as an async function. Alright, because this function is going to perform a network call, so that is the reason we need to actually use this function as async function. And inside of that, we need to wrap the code inside the try catch block. So this will be the try block, and then we also need to add the catch block. So this will be the catch block, and inside of that we need to start its block of the code. Here we need to specify the error, not console.error. Actually this is the shortcuts of the Visual Studio Code. Alright, and here inside of that we need to actually first use here console.log, and then we want to print the error. Alright, and also we actually want to display an alert, which is totally optional. If you want, you can do it. Alright, it's totally up to you. So here I'm going to display a message like an error occurred. Alright, so error occurred, simply this particular message I want to display. Now inside of the try block, we need to get the response. So const, and here I am creating the response variable is equal to, and we want to get the response. So first I'm going to here use the dollar symbol, which is the template string. So actually I want to here use the template string, not a single quotation. So we want to use here a template string, then a dollar, then curly brackets, and inside of the curly brackets we want to pass the search term. According to that particular value we want to search, and here in front of that we need to append the URL. So this particular URL that we want to listen, so this is the URL API dictionary dot. So we want like this particular part, just leave this particular frog one, this word, because this particular will be replaced by using this search term variable. So here we need to paste the URL. Alright, so this will be the URL for the application, means the API call. So if it is successful, then we want to save the response inside the variable. But before that we need to check for the condition. So here we need to use the if condition, and instead of that first we need to use the response. So if it is okay, so if it is returning a okay response, then we want to save this particular data inside a variable like const data, and we want to actually use the await function. Await means the await keyword, await, and then we want to store it in a form of JSON, response.json. And here we need to wrap this entire code inside the fetch function. So again we need to use here await, fetch, and then we need to pass the parameter which is a URL, and then this semicolon will be added here. Alright, so this particular will be replaced by this search term, because here this search term will be the word that will be come from this particular input type. Alright, this particular input type variable will be replaced by this variable. Okay, so this is for the response term, and inside of this particular if block, if there is any error, we want to get that error, so we are going to use here a throw new error. So we are going to create here an error new, and then we need to display a message that we want, which is failed to fetch the data. Okay, so this is the message that we want to display. After that, getting the data, if there is a successful, then that data will be stored inside this particular data variable. Then we want to pass this data variable to a display function, display result function. So this function is going to accept the data as a parameter. So this function will be like display. So this function will be responsible for the display of the data. That is, this particular structure will be created by this particular display result function. Okay, so we need to create this particular function. So here again we need to use a function, then display result, and this function is going to accept a parameter. So we need to pass the data as a parameter. So data, and then instead of that, first we need to set the result container dot style dot display to block. Remember, inside the CSS part we have set the display to none, so now we need to set the display to block so that it will become visible. And then we need to actually treat this thing as an array. So here we need to use the const, because it is actually a JSON object, so it is like word, and I can just simply say it as here word data, and then the data is actually stored in a form of JSON data array, because the word will be treated like an array. So here I have actually added a 0, data 0, that is actually going to represent like at the 0th index, because this is actually at the 0th index. If I just simply do it like this, so this is actually an array, and the index of this particular entire array is actually started from 0. So that is the reason we want to fetch the word, so we have specified here a 0. Alright, and after that you can simply console log it from here, but I know that this code is actually working, so I'm going to continue the HTML structure part of the project, that is this one. So I'm going to create the structure. So for that we need to add here a bunch of code. So the first thing is we need to create here the word title, because we have actually created the variables at the top, that is word title, description, and audio button. So we need to get the word title. So word title dot, and then we need to update the text content is equal to word data dot word. Right, so this will actually gets the word data from word. So here this is actually the word that we want to fetch from the word data, because the data is actually stored inside of this word. This word data will be used to get the data from the JSON API, means the JSON data. Alright, and after that we need to construct the word description. So word description, so it's going to update the inner HTML. Then we actually going to use here our template string. So template string, and then first we need to terminate it. Then I'm going to split the code into multiple lines, and here first I'm going to create the UL tag. So UL tag, then we also want a closing UL tag. Okay, so the closing UL tag, close the UL tag. Instead of that we need to first update the value of the word. So the first thing is we need a word data dot meanings, because inside the data we want a meanings. So this meanings is actually from this particular one, like this one. This is the meanings we actually want to fetch it. That is the reason, because the word description will contain the meaning of the word. Alright, and then we need to use here a map function, so that we can add a key value pair, and here we need to add the meaning, that is meanings, not meaning, it's like a meaning. And then we need to use here arrow, and again inside of that we need to use the template string. So then I'm going to split it into multiple lines. So here we're actually getting the error. The reason for that, we need to actually close this bracket like this. Okay, so that is the bracket will be closed here, and then we need to call the join so that we can append a new line character at the end. and now it's actually not giving any error. So now everything is perfect, because we need to nest the things, because inside of that we need to append the li element. So that is the reason we need to open the another template character, and then we need to use here a paragraph tag, and also we need to use this strong tag. Alright, and here we need to actually close it with the paragraph tag, and also we need to close the strong tag. Okay, and instead of that, first we need to add the dollar, then the curly brackets, and then we need to add the meaning dot, and here we need to use the part of speech. So this is actually the part of speech, that is this one. We are actually fetching it here, part of speech. Alright, and we need to actually here use the placeholder text that we want to display, which is the part of speech. Right, so this is what we actually done here, and then I'm going to duplicate it into one more time. So this is a part of speech, then this is will be the definition. Okay, and strong meaning, and here meanings dot. So this will be the definition, like this one, because it is an array. Definition, then we need to add the curly bracket, round square brackets, and 0, and then we want to fetch the definition, that is this one. Alright, so now the display result function is also done. We have created the HTML structure that is actually used to create this particular result container values. Now once we done with it, it's time to control save it to see whether the application is working or not. So I'm going to here add a word dog and click on this search. Then you can see now our application is working fine. Part of speech noun, definition enable, you can see part of speech verb, and definition to pursue, intent to catch. Okay, and if I enter a different word like table, if I press the enter key, now you can see part of speech noun, definition, then part of speech verb. So it is really depending upon the API data. So if I replace here a word like if I actually here remove the word, press the enter key, then it's going to display the different things. So according to this particular API, we are able to fetch the data. Now the next functionality that we want to achieve is to actually, whenever we click on this particular button, we want to play the sound of the word, that is this particular one. So to add the speak functionality, we need to add here a function. So first we need to set the listener to the audio button. So add event listener, and inside of that listener, we want to listen to the click listener of the button, and then we want to add the function audio button, then const, then search term is equal to, and here we want to add the search input dot value dot trim. Again we need to trim it because we don't want any spaces, so that is the reason. Then we need to add the search. So this will be the same condition that we have added at the top. This is the same condition, so I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it here, and then we need to call here a function which is speak function. Instead of that, we need to pass the search term. Alright, we save the data inside the search term, and then we pass the speak function, means the search term as a parameter to the speak function. Alright, and now we need to create this speak function. So this speak function is going to accept a one parameter, which is actually a search term. So I can change this search term as a parameter like word name. So I name this argument as a word, and then we need to create here a constant speech is equal to new, and here we need to use the speech synthesis. So this will be the space synthesis, and this one we are going to use it, speech synthesis utterance. Okay, this will be the thing that then we need to pass the word, and after that we need to set the language. So speech dot lang is equal to is actually English US. Okay, and then we need to set the speech volume. So speech dot volume, that is this one, is equal to 2, and then speech rate is actually going to be 1, and then speech pitch dot pitch is also going to be 1, and after that we need to set the window dot speech synthesis, which is the speech synthesis function. Then we use the speak, not spark, speak, and instead of that we need to set the speech that we have created. Control save it, and now if I simply change my speakers, because otherwise it is not going to record the audio whatever it is going to speak here. Now if I enter here a word like table, search it, now the data is fetched. If I click on it,
table,
so you can see here it's actually said a
table.
So now our speak functionality is also working fine. So that's it for the dictionary application. We have now successfully built the dictionary project, which is actually going to fetch the data from this particular API. So the project is very simple. It is first we have actually get the reference of the variables, then we have set the listener to the button and the input type, then we have actually checked for the any wrong entry of the input type for the invalid inputs. Then we fetch the data, means we pass the search term to fetch it. Particular function is actually responsible for fetching the data from this particular URL. Because it is a async task, means it is a network task, so we need to use the async await. It's very easy. We catch the errors. After getting the response from the data variable, we need to pass that particular data to the display result function. We have passed it as an argument. Now this particular display result function is actually constructed this whole layout to actually display the data inside this particular result container. And then after that we add the audio functionality by setting the listener to the audio button, and then we created the speak functionality by using this particular speak and created the speech. So if I click on it, then it's going to set the table. Now if I change here a word like frog, search it, and if I click on it, you can see now it's actually saying a frog. So that's it for this particular part of the project. If you like this project, then please leave your review, because your review definitely going to help me to reach more students, and also it motivates me to create more awesome content like this. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you very much.